It's another year, and for some reason, it's another news cycle that vaping is in. The reason being, particularly, the deaths that are being linked to it, the fact that there's a new CNBC documentary that's specifically about vaping, and the fact that, especially in the United States, there's a brand new trend of banning vaping-related products. So I decided, what better way to start a brand new channel than by talking about a topic that could very well be out of vogue within a month. So vaping's a bit of a hot button issue, because you press the button and then it like... So vaping's been a favorite for journalists and the media for quite some time now, and a part of that is the language that's been getting thrown around about it. For instance, the FDA just a little while ago called vaping an epidemic, which is really strong language and really good to get clicks. But also really controversial has been how it's supposedly affecting the youth, especially teenagers. So when I decided to cover this topic, I decided I would do the unthinkable. I surveyed high schoolers. So before we jump into what I found out, let's talk about the statistics that we already have. And for the purpose of this video, I'm going to use Canadian statistics. For no reason. I just decided to use Canadian statistics. So anyway, last year, CBC posted a report that said 17% of the high school population of Oshawa, Ontario was using vapes, or e-cigarettes, or hoochers, cloud boxes, ripsticks, I don't know. Okay, whatever you call them, the CBC took that 17% number and they called it troubling. And they actually had good reason to, because according to the University of Waterloo, 2.9% of the country's teens smoked. So that's a pretty big increase. But the 17% number came from Oshawa, Ontario. And not to give away my postal code or anything, but these surveys were taken a little bit further east. So let's talk about the actual survey now. Let's get into some numbers. So the survey was designed to gauge the level of vape use among our student population. So that included things like how frequently they used vapes, what kind of brands they were using, and also how vaping interacted with their cigarette use. So we got 172 people to participate in this survey, and I've got some quick stats about them lined up right here. So 105 of them stated that they had vaped at some point, and while that seems pretty significant, it really isn't. Blowing a vape cloud with your buddies is pretty different from regular use. But on the topic of regular use, we got 89 people saying they used at least monthly, and 32 of them saying that they used daily. That's 19% of our sample population using daily. And that's pretty significant, because remember that 17% number that I gave you from CBC? Well, that was only based on using a vape once per year. And here we're 2% higher on daily use alone. So the rate of use that we got from this survey was actually a lot higher than the one that the University of Waterloo posted in this statistic as well. And while the survey size and also the age range that they're doing is a bit different than ours, the numbers are still way off, and they probably shouldn't be. And this is where we run into one of the biggest sort of controversies about vaping in general. It's that it's really hard to predict any vaping trends. Maybe Eastern Canada vapes more than Ontario, or maybe Ontario vapes more than the country, or even the rest of the world. We may never know. And it's pretty normal for the human brain to fill in gaps of information with some anxiety about how this is going to be the end of the world. But I'll leave you to decide if that's actually something you should be worried about. While we're on filling in gaps of information, one of the most frustrating things about seeing vaping in the media is how they keep using the fear-mongering strategy just to garner some clicks. You see, you've probably seen something sort of like, one Juul pod has exactly as much nicotine as a whole carton of cigarettes. Except that's not a doctor talking to you, that's a journalist, and they want you to click on that headline so you watch an ad about the new Mazda AK98 so they get that money, and then they fill a third swimming pool with their coins or something. If you've ever heard that comparison, it's not entirely accurate, because not only do you not absorb all of the nicotine from, say, one hit of a vape or one cigarette, everyone's nicotine uptake also differs. And one interesting thing that we found in our survey is about 78% of the vaping population actually likes to have their nicotine uptake between 0 and 12 milligrams per milliliter in their e-liquid or vape juice. And that's actually not all that strong, because those juices can go up to 50 milligrams per milliliter or even higher. Let's talk about the relation between vaping and smoking darts, gunning sticks. Since its inception, vaping's been touted as the be-all, end-all way to quit smoking. And so I ventured to ask in this survey, if you do smoke and vape, did you start smoking before or after you started vaping? And 78% of the people that we surveyed actually said that they did start vaping after they started smoking, which bodes well for its use as a quitting tool, but could also indicate that they're just using it to conceal or supplement their nicotine intake. On the flip side of that coin, 18% of people said that they started smoking after they started vaping, which means that they are reversing the intended trend, and that could be problematic. This by no means indicates that vaping is a gateway to smoking or vice versa, because it's likely that those who are more apt to try vaping also wanted to try smoking, or were at least more open to it. Remember that correlation doesn't equal causation. But something that's also important to note is the fact that of our sample population, 22% of them smoked, which is a lot higher than the 7.9% that the University of Waterloo estimates for the 15 to 19 age range. So is vaping gonna kill all the youth, start a new apocalypse? No, probably not. It looks pretty scary when we look on the media and we see people getting sick and people dying from vaping-related illness. But when we're looking at this stuff, we need to take into account what's called the base rate fallacy, which essentially is just the tendency of humans to think of specific instances instead of how often things actually occur. And this is especially affected by the media, which reports every single time someone, say, dies from vaping, of which there have been 54 cases in the United States. But do you know how many people die every year because of smoking? The CDC says 500,000. But for some reason, that's not worth reporting anymore. Probably because it's old news, so we don't hear about it, and hence we think that vaping is the next big deal. Vaping obviously isn't this passing trend, and if governments want to get ahead of those negative health effects, they should probably start adapting to it and try to do a better job than they did with smoking. For instance, fear tactics seem to be coming back into vogue like they were when smoking sort of became a big health concern. For instance, the province of Nova Scotia has recently decided to ban flavored vape juices. And one of the students that I actually interviewed for this made a comment on that, and they said, fear tactics didn't really work for smoking, did they? So why would we keep trying that for vaping? It just doesn't seem like it's going to work, and I totally agree with that point. That's all I got for you. I'd really like to know what you guys think about this because I could be wrong. I am but one man. Also, if you guys have any more ideas for videos that I should do, please drop them in the comments because by God, I have already run out of ideas. Thank you guys for watching.